Hi, my name is Jasmine, and you're watching the Community Leaders Podcast.
What's up? It's your boy Los. You're listening to the Community Leaders Podcast. And across from me, I have the young lady Jasmin Graham. Jasmin Graham,
Yes.
what do you do?
I do a lot, but I'm going to start with I'm a founder and CEO of Spiritual Wellness, and that is a health and wellness company that I created.
And what does that entail?
So I host different yoga and wellness, they're curated experiences. For example, I have a retreat coming up. It's a one-day retreat that will be hosted on the west side of Chicago at the Conservatory, and it'll be a day of like self-reflection, self-care, and rejuvenation. So I'll be leading yoga, a restorative yoga session, and then I have a lot of other facilitators that will be doing different things to help you relax, unwind, and rejuvenate.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what else do you do for the community?
So for community, I'm a community advocate. So for example, if there are things going on in the community, or if and it can be good or bad. So I advocate for situations where there is a pothole and someone needs, I feel like I'm the advocator because I like to take the initiative, right? So I brought up the pothole because sometimes we have a lot of those in my neighborhood and everyone complains, but I'm the one that's gonna make the phone call to 311, right?
Okay.
There could be different events happening around the neighborhood or outside the neighborhood that could benefit people in the community. And I'm the person that's like, hey, did you hear about this? Or sending this email, or just like word of mouth. So I do a lot from the top to the bottom. I clean up the trash in the neighborhoods. I'm an educator as well. So my background is education. And there are a lot of kids in the community. So I like to just talk to them, see what they're into, see what they're about. I am also currently, my current position, I work for Breakthrough Urban Ministries, and I am a family support coordinator. And what we do, it's a partnership with the Chicago Public Schools, and we help re-engage high school students that probably dropped out or never went to high school after 8th grade, and we want to re-engage them. So we have behavioral health services, we help them academically, I offer family support, and yeah, we just try to make their experience, compared to the traditional school setting, we try to make an experience more pleasant for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Going on 2 years now.
So what made you want to do that?
Well, I left CPS, Chicago Public Schools, I think it was the year after like the pandemic. And during the pandemic, it was primarily virtual, like the virtual school. And I just felt like I needed a different lane. Like I wanted to try something new. And that's when I decided to still stay in touch with like the educational piece and work with students. And the family support role was very new to me. I went in for the interview and they were like, this is something new, but are you capable? And I was like, very capable, like, because I know my potential. So I like a challenge, and it was a challenge, and I'm enjoying the role so far.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you always lived on the west side?
Always lived on the west side, born and raised.
What school did you go to?
So grade school or high school? Because I went to a few schools.
Either. Tell us the story.
I started off at a school, it's called Melody now, but I started off in like their child care center. So that was before kindergarten. It's Melody now, it was Delano. From there, I went to Providence St. Mel, which is in the Garfield Park community. Did not graduate from there. I ended up going to another school, and it was called Dodge Renaissance Academy, but it's now like a CPS office building. And then I went up north. I went to Oscar Meyer Elementary, and that's where I graduated from 8th grade. From there, I ended up going to North Lawndale College Prep, all 4 years.
Okay. And then that was grammar school? That was the high school?
High school.
Now college?
Illinois State University for undergrad, and then DePaul University for my master's.
How was your college years?
They were very interesting.
Okay.
So coming from Chicago, big city, I felt like Chicago was like a faster pace living. Bloomington Normal, that's where my school was, where it is. Bloomington Normal is a slower pace, easy living, super quiet, and it was just kind of a culture shock, but not in the sense of like being amongst others that I've never been around, because I've been around a pretty diverse crowd since I was a kid, but just being on my own, figuring things out. 2 hours away from Chicago, but it still seemed far. And I feel like what kind of helped connect me is just joining organizations that I was interested in. So I joined a dance team, Noir Dance Troupe, and then ASA, African Student Association. So those two organizations kind of helped me feel a lot more grounded while there. And then another experience was me getting a job. I worked for the International Studies office. And from there, I had the opportunity to study abroad. So that was actually I studied abroad twice.
Did you?
I did.
Where abroad?
The first time I studied abroad, it was like a 2-3 week program. I went to London, Paris, and Amsterdam.
Awesome.
It was pretty awesome. So I took a class, had to take a test, learned some culture and history about Europe, and I passed the test, of course, with an A. And then we got a chance to go abroad. The second time, that's when I was working for the Office of International Studies, and I think it's Office of International Studies and Programs, I think. Don't quote me. But they were like, yeah, we're thinking about introducing Greece to our programming. And I was like, oh, so it's new? No one's gone there? And they're like, yeah, no one's gone to Greece from Illinois State.
Awesome.
And I was like, can I be the first?
Yeah.
And they were like, why not? So my last year of undergrad, I studied abroad. I went to Greece, Thessaloniki, and I went to the American University of Thessaloniki, and I lived there, and it was an amazing experience that I'm so glad I took advantage of.
So you're moving around a lot.
Yeah.
So you're going away for college,
Yeah.
and then you're almost, could say, traveling the world a little tiny bit, right?
I did.
Got your passport, right?
Got my passport, got my stamps, yeah.
Uh-huh. So how was that being away from your parents?
So I'm very family oriented, close with my parents, and it was, I won't say it was tough. It was a little challenging at times, but I knew I could always pick up the phone and call them. And they would come and visit a lot. And I think it was more so because of the food at Illinois State University. They were like,
okay.
ooh, like you guys have the, like the food halls.
Uh-huh.
We have really good food. But no, I'm joking. So it wasn't really hard. It was just, I always knew that they would be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then abroad, when I went to Greece, I had a tough time. I had a really tough time because that was a culture shock for me for sure. Because I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and just trying to adapt to that setting and the culture there and embrace the culture was a little tough, but I made it through and I made it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came back to the States, and what did you start doing?
So I came back to the States, had my degree, and that's when I started working for Chicago Public Schools. And I think I always knew that I was interested in becoming an educator because my mom, she's an educator. And so I was like, this is something that I'm interested in because I've been around it. I had teachers tell me, like, you would make a good teacher. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I just started working right out of college. And then that's when I decided to go back and pursue my master's. After graduating from Illinois State, started working, and then I went and started my master's program at DePaul.
Okay. So what are your fondest memories as a child? Let me take you back to 10 years old.
Ooh. Fondest memories. I would say traveling. So we did a lot of traveling when I was a kid. I have a younger brother, so I'm trying to think 10 years old exactly, but it's not clicking. But fondest memories are just traveling. I remember we went to Disney World with my family, my mom, dad, my younger brother, and my two cousins, Cherie and Stanford. So we just had a good time. I remember we stayed at this, like, I don't know if it was a timeshare, but it was kind of like a lofty, it wasn't a hotel. It felt like a townhome. So we stayed in this townhome. We rented a car. We went to get food. We went shopping, went in the pool. So I just remember just the togetherness and just being with family, laughing, having fun, getting in the pool. My cousin, Cherie, she's 10 years older than I am. And we actually call each other sisters instead of cousins. And just remember her being there and just having fun with my family.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let me take you back to being a teenager.
Okay.
What did that look like?
Ooh, I thought I knew it all.
Mm-hmm.
But being my teenage years were fun. I danced, so was heavily involved in church, especially as a teen. I was in the choir. I was a praise dancer, and I was heavily involved in church. I was also part of the drill team, so we would always go to competition every year. And the most exciting thing about that was it happened in like June, so I got to leave school early. And so as a teenager, I just remember being heavily involved in church, and a lot of my best friends, I met them at church. And a lot of them were still good friends. And it was just a time frame I feel that really helped build the foundation of who I am today. Because when I think about my teen years, it was church. I was super involved. I look forward to going to rehearsals and seeing my friends and going to service and enjoying. I mean, as a teenager, I was there, but probably didn't listen to the sermons as best as I should have, but I was there, right? And so I was amongst a positive group of individuals that helped mold me into become who I am today. So that's what I most remember when I think about my teenage years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now you're in your late 20s. I know how old you are now. So
Thank
I'm not
you.
saying now. I'm saying, well, let's say mid-20s.
Mid-20s, okay.
What was that like?
Mid-20s. I was in grad school. I was working full-time in grad school. Didn't have much of a social life, but I made time to hang out. But I've never been someone who's like always out on the weekends because I'm an introvert. A lot of people might not know that, but I like to be in my own space. I love being at home in the comfort of my home, or like with friends and we're in the house. Like I don't mind hanging out in the house. But it was a time that I felt that I had to have everything figured out. And, you know, mid-20s, you start looking at your 30s and you're like, uh-oh, 30s are coming. What are you going to do? Mm-hmm. What's next? So that is, interestingly enough, when I started to experience like generalized anxiety because, you know, you don't have control of the future. And for me, things always kind of like worked out how I planned them to. And then like mid-20s, late 20s is when I started like realizing like, hey, that's not how life works. You can have your to-do list and you can have your vision boards and you're used to everything working out the way you intend them to, but that's when life started to life. Like, I had a quarter-life crisis, and yeah, that's, like I said, that's when I realized that I started experiencing generalized anxiety, and that is where the birth of spiritual wellness actually came from.
Okay. Did you seek help for that anxiety?
I did. So at first, because I feel like my anxiety showed up in physical ways. So I don't mind going to the doctor. I'm like, this is what's happening. Tell me what's going on. And when I realized that, your labs come back perfectly fine, you're good, I was like, maybe it's all in the head. And that made me think about like my mental health, because that's nothing that I've never had to deal with that or worry about that. It wasn't something that was apparent in my world. So I had no clue that I should probably look into a therapist. And so that's when I started going to therapy.
How did that work out for you?
It was life-changing, really. And the reason why therapy was life-changing is because when I started to go to the doctor's appointments, they were like, hey, you can take this medicine and it'll help with this. And I come from, like, my mom is like holistic health all the way. So she's always instilled, like, let's try these holistic approaches first. And then, I think it's going to work. So it might not be a then. So therapy was great. Therapy was something that because there's a stigma behind therapy.
There is, yes.
Especially in the Black and brown community. And so for me, I went in with an open mind and I was like, I'll give it a try. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah. As you know, I also go to therapy and I love it. I love it. And I'm a big advocate for it.
Absolutely.
I think we all need it. At some point in our lives, we've been through some kind of trauma.
I agree.
That we just don't speak to our families about. And speaking to a total stranger sometimes just feels right.
It does. Because you're like, you have this non-biased opinion.
Yeah.
And you went to school for this. So you know how the mind works, emotions, feelings. Yeah. So I agree. Yeah. Everyone can use therapy.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, I love my therapist. Yeah. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's awesome. Every session I come out feeling better.
As you should.
Yeah.
As you should.
And it's something I didn't know I needed.
Exactly. That was me. I was like, I'll give it a try. And I'm like, I can't let go of it now.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you are here today.
I am here.
You're at this age today.
Yes.
What are you doing? I don't want to say your age. I don't want to put it out there.
That's okay.
So what are you doing now? What are you doing now as far as work, as far as in any volunteering you do or giving back? What do you do now?
So now, of course, I'm a part of the CLF Community Leadership Fellows, which is an amazing organization. I'm also a part of a few other boards, and they're community focused. And like I mentioned earlier, I am a family support coordinator, and I work with a nonprofit, Breakthrough Urban Ministries. And I have my own business, Spiritual Wellness, which is really growing. It's really growing. So I feel like I'm involved in two sectors. I'm involved in the education sector as well as health and wellness. And I feel like it's a great balance because in those spaces, even when I was with CPS, in those spaces, I was allowed to show up as my authentic self and, use things that help me, yoga, breath work. Those are things that I used in the classroom and I used with students. And at first it was like, what are we doing? What is yoga or what is breath work? I know how to breathe. It's like, it's a technique to breathing, or yoga connects the breath to movement. So now I feel like I've really found my purpose.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned earlier to you that I'm pursuing my PhD in educational leadership. So
yes.
My idea is to create like my own school, right?
Okay.
And with that, I want to heavily focus on health and wellness because it's a priority. You have students that show up, even with the program that I'm a part of now at Breakthrough. You have students that show up and you expect for them to work and to learn, but they are dealing with real life issues, things that consume them every day. And so that's why in the traditional school setting, it just didn't work out because they didn't have the space to release, right? And so I really want to get a group of people and open up a school that has like this therapeutic, aspect to it that really focuses on like mental health and movement. And I want everyone to live healthier lives, right? And through that encourages me as well, because health is wellness. And it's one of those things where I remember reading something about someone being on their deathbed, right? And in that moment, you're not thinking about the money and the cars and the house and all this. You're just like, I wish I was well, right? And that made me think, like, if you're not well, nothing else really matters. Like, things matter, but you are focused on how you are not in the space where you physically, mentally want to be to just exist and live. So in this moment, like, my focuses are community, advocating for community, encouraging community to, don't get used to what is. Like, there's more to life, and healing is important, and this is how you do it. Or just encouraging them to want to do better, to want to live, and not just live, but live well. So I'm in a space where most of my conversations, friends and family, I'm always talking about things that have to do with health and wellness. Like, even if it's a conversation about food. What are you eating? How many calories are in there? How much salt is in there? And everyone's like, oh my God. So yeah, I'm in a good space right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So with the work that you do you see any progress on the West Side?
Absolutely. And in terms of, like my 9 to 5, even with that program, CPS has thousands of students that are displaced or just not in school or not enrolled. And these are the students, the kids that you see outside hanging out during school hours. And so our program, it's one of a kind. And even with that, when I tell people what I do, they're like, I've never heard of anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, we just had our first graduating class actually in December.
Awesome.
And so I was just standing there like, when you have resources and you have people that believe in, what you're doing. So we believe in the kids. We have the resources. So let's, instead of saying, hey, these kids are causing havoc, wreaking havoc, they're doing this and that, have conversations with them, because I talk to them all the time. I'm like, in a perfect world, what would you want? Like, I just want to take care of my family. I want to do this. I want to do that. And the reason why I'm out here doing these bad things is because I don't have the resources. So my only way to get the resources immediately is to do things that might not be legal, but I'm going to take that risk to feed my family, to feed myself, and to take care of, the people around me. Some of them have kids. So it's definitely making impact in terms of like what I do with spiritual wellness. I've partnered with other organizations in Chicago, primarily on the West Side, and we've done things where we host fitness and health challenges. And it's making a difference because people are saying they've never worked out. They've never done yoga. They didn't consider like their eating habits and how it affects them in the long run. And so I see the growth, especially on the West Side of Chicago. Talking about health and wellness can be something that people are just not comfortable with, but I feel like now more than ever, especially after post-pandemic, people are taking into consideration how they should start taking care of themselves a lot better. So, and that's why I think the pandemic was like a blessing and a curse, because people started to wake up and they realized, hey, I need to take care of myself because we have one temple. You got to take care of it. Mm-hmm. Can't replace it.
So what do you think needs to be addressed, like right away, right now?
In terms of like the community.
How to help out the West Side, West Side.
Resources. because one of the things is when you invest, you're going to see progress, right? And even with me, like if I can hold space, if that could be my 9 to 5 or just like not even a 9 to 5, if I can do it to my fullest capacity, if I had the space and the resources, this is something that I would do every day. I would host events and I would have a facility where, you know, it's a one-stop shop. If you need movement, if you need to speak with a holistic doctor, or if you need a therapist or a psychiatrist, like we need resources. And so that's really what I'm long-term with spiritual wellness. I really want to build like a state-of-the-art health and wellness facility. And that, I feel like things like that will make a world of a difference, because when you know better, you do better. And when you have the resources and someone educates you, because sometimes you just don't know what's out there, right? And so once you're introduced to certain things, I know that would make a difference. So, yeah.
Awesome. Love that. So if you had any words of wisdom for the person that's watching this video right now,
Okay.
what would it be?
Look, I have a few words, but I'm trying to think of like the best. I'd say be your authentic self and show up for, you know, what you stand for, right? So everyone stands for something different. And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? And so just showing up, being your authentic self, and putting your best foot forward in whatever area that you're interested in, I think that's super, super duper fulfilling. And that's what I'm trying to do. Well, that's what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. That's the advice that I would give.
So I need one memorable quote. It's a good one, right?
That's a good one. Oh, I got it. I think I said it. Don't just live well.
Awesome. Last question.
Okay.
And it's actually one of the first questions I asked you.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
And it's changed since the first the first time. If I had a superpower,
yeah.
Lord, I'm not stepping on your toes, but if I could heal people, I would.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, when Jesus Jesus left and he ascended, he said we would do greater things, right? Mm-hmm. And he healed.
Yeah.
So, hello.
Yeah. So that would be my superpower.
It just might be a different way.
Exactly.
Amen. Well, thank you, Jasmin, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Cut. Why can't I have to look at your name?